everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are really excited to be here to be talking about Netflix and other streaming services for 2020. Today, we thought we'd do a fun little bonus podcast, and there's nobody that I'd rather have here talking about this with than my friend Austin Burke. And Austin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I watched a lot of TV this year, Rachel, so I'm excited to talk about the best. I mean, not the best year for movies, but we got some great television shows, some ones I'm excited for, and I couldn't thank you enough more for having me on today. I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, it's interesting because I'm not somebody who typically watches a lot of series because I just don't have time since I'm watching so many movies, especially TV movies. But because I had even more time this year, I had more time to watch some series. So that's been a good thing. It's been exciting.
It's a lot of people. I mean, circumstantially, maybe not the best for some, but we've gotten so much good content this year and so many things that we just don't have time to watch and catch up on, and numerous that you're going to talk about, I'm sure, that I want to catch up on in preparation for the next season of the show. So that's definitely not, something you're going to write home about. Well, we've got years and years of content, but I'm excited to check out all of these shows that you're going to talk about, Rachel. Mm-hmm. And the ones that I watched, I just hold so close to me. So it was a great year for TV.
Yeah. So, and we had, 3 shows that you and I covered together on the podcast. And then I had an additional show that I covered with Jennifer Chandler, my friend, that was on Disney Plus, was High School Musical, the series, season 1.
Yes. How was that? Because I started watching it.
I've ever heard in my life.
So
but
true.
It's a good show. It really is a good show. And the casting, I think, is what makes it truly excel. And I just finished watching Julie and the Phantoms season 1, and I enjoyed that. But I think that the difference between High School Musical, the series, and Julie and the Phantoms is that it's more Broadway, the style of singing, and that's more my jam than like pop music with Julie and the Phantoms. So a lot of it just depends on your kind of style of music that you like. But both shows, I think, did a very good job of casting teenagers that actually look like teenagers, and maybe they're like at 18, 19, whatever, but they look like teenagers. So as opposed to so many other shows like Glee, for goodness sakes, where they like they're all 35. Like, what are you doing? And so I think that was the strength. Did you watch Julie and the Phantoms?
I did. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I wouldn't use the word love, but it's one of those that I just had such a good time with. And that one musical number, I'm still jamming out to. I thought the music in that show was incredible.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like I said, I performed the more Broadway style, but I still enjoyed the music in Julie and Phantoms. Yeah, especially that big assembly song. I forget the name.
So good.
But that's a good song. And there's an underlying emotion to the whole show, which I think makes it work. That because of her dealing with the loss of her mom, and then also she has these ghosts, and so it makes sense. And so that was really good. And then High School Musical show, when they're dealing with the teens, I think it's really quite good, and the songs are good. When they start some of the adults plot lines, not as good. Not as good. But and some of the conflict, I was like, isn't really that big a deal that he has your phone? Like, what is the problem? But it's okay. It's just me being 40, and there's teenagers here. What do I know? So yes, and then another teenager show that we both covered together is The Babysitter's Club. And how great was this show?
Oh, I mean, and I always say, Rachel, I'm like, and I don't love when the coming of age, the cliches, all this stuff, but the more of these shows that I watch, like Dash and Lily and Babysitter's Club, and I'm sure we'll talk about more, the more I'm on board. And I think you said it the last time we talked. How do you not like this show?
Yeah.
It's just great. I think it's great coming of age, perfect casting. The
Yeah.
kids are phenomenal. And the chemistry between everyone just works so well. Maybe one storyline that I didn't love as much compared to the others, but overall, The Babysitter's Club, if I could recommend one family show on Netflix, that might be the one that I recommend.
Yeah, I think so. If you are a human who grew up, then you'll like this show. This is such an authentic show. It
Yeah.
has so many authentic moments that people will be able to relate to. And I keep telling that to my friends, and they're like, oh, I don't know. And then they watch it and they're like, yeah, that was really good.
There's almost this sense of nostalgia. I didn't even read the books. I'm not familiar as much as a lot of others are, but I have this sense of nostalgia while watching just because it feels like something I would have loved growing up with. So yeah, I would encourage all ages to watch this show. Every age group. I think it's that good.
One of my favorite shows that I saw this year, not on Netflix, this on HBO Max, was McMillions. Did you ever get a chance to see McMillions?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. McMillions was so great. It's about this scam to rip off the McDonald's monopoly before it was like in 2000. Like 1998 to 2000. And the great thing about this show, first of all, they have Doug Matthews, investigator extraordinaire, who is hilarious and is born for television, needs his own show. He shows up in one of these meetings wearing like a gold McDonald's suit, and he's like,
I want one of those.
Oh, good. He was awesome. And it's just the most crazy group of people that you've ever seen. And what I really liked is that in this case, there's nobody's really hurt by this scam, right? Like McDonald's was giving the money away anyway. And so they just have been able to kind of swindle away to get the money, but nobody's hurt by this scam, so you can enjoy it and not feel guilty. Because a lot of these Ponzi scheme stories, you're like, I feel horrible. These people had their lives ruined. I mean, nobody's hurt by this scheme. I mean, I don't even think these people should really be in jail because, like, I mean, what? Why? And so I just thought it was so entertaining. And the group of people that they have, like I said, that get involved, there's like mafia that gets involved. And then there's like this they say the mafia Mormons and
oh my god.
Yeah, like there's this
McMafia. Is that what
the McMillions. You got to see it. It's so good. But I don't know if you had any kind of documentaries that you liked particularly this year.
Oh, this documentary series. Oh man, I watched a lot of docuseries. Not necessarily. I mean, can we talk about Tiger King? Is it too cliche at this point? Because I was mesmerized by Tiger King.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And the memes that have spawned from this docuseries. But if you're asking me,
he had a country music album.
The music videos are incredible. But if you ask me, Austin, what's the one docuseries you're going to come back to from 2020? And I'm not going to say it's the best because I don't think it was, but it's probably Tiger King. Just because it's fascinating to watch. So entertaining too. Those characters, those people, ridiculous. But, it's Tiger King. That's how it goes.
Yeah. So we had two series that were kind of your homespun series, I'll call them, that were both on Netflix. We had Virgin River season 2, and then we had Sweet Magnolias. And you didn't finish season 2 of Virgin River, but you watched season 1. So what was your thoughts?
I enjoyed it, and I watched season 1. I saw your review, and I wanted to get caught up for season 2. Unfortunately, I just ran out of time to cover season 2, but I liked it. And I love what you said is that and Sweet Magnolias, they have very similar vibes. You've got the camaraderie of the town. You've got the craziness, the drug subplot storyline for Virgin River, but it was a good time. And I ended up really digging the characters. And then you have Sweet Magnolias, which is beautiful relationships, beautiful casting, but you also had these love stories and Bill, the character that I still don't like to this day. Just a lot of nice storylines to invest in. So I think both of those shows were standouts. And I'm definitely going to watch Virgin River season 2 if that's something you would recommend to me.
Yes. So I would recommend it. I did enjoy it. I think that they had a little bit better chemistry. There are Mel and Jack leads had a little bit better chemistry this season than the first season, for me at least. And there was enough sort of storylines, the doctor and his wife and preacher and his storyline, some of these different storylines that worked for me. At the end of the first season, I said in my review, I said I didn't really like the drug cartel plot line. And I wish they forget about that, but they didn't forget about it.
Oh no, that's not a good sign, Rachel.
Yeah. So that was kind of like, but also there's also this teenager romance plot line that, I mean, I've been pretty positive about teenage plot lines so far, but that one was not my favorite, the teenage plot line in Virgin River season 2, but still definitely worth watching. Still a good show. If you like shows like Heart of Dixie, Men in Trees, shows like that, then you'll love Virgin River. And I do think it was maybe like hurt just a teeny tiny bit by the fact that Sweet Magnolias is a very similar to feel of show, but I do think it's better. And it just has so many great characters, and
it does,
including the teenagers in Sweet Magnolias, which are so well done. And given like real meaty storylines, which I wasn't expecting. And I mean, just Heather Headley, Brooke Elliott, Joanna Garcia, incredible.
And that's part of why Sweet Magnolias works so well, is because, yes, you have the camaraderie between the leads, the adults, right? But then you look at the kids' storylines, which is usually the weakest aspect of a show like that. But I actually felt really good about how that plot progressed and the different characters that we were introduced to and where he goes with baseball. And I just really liked that. So I think the show as a whole does a good job of balancing. And then, of course, you get those sweet moments at the end and you're just all on board at that point. So I'm excited for more Sweet Magnolias, and I'm excited to catch up on Virgin River as well.
Yeah. Then we also had, based on books, we had Dash and Lily in December, which was the cutest thing to ever exist.
It was. I agree so with you good. There. It was so good.
And yeah, they did such a good job with casting. I mean, so much, especially in a romantic comedy show, so much of it lives and dies on casting.
Yes. I mean, I will repeat myself for the 100th time. You have characters displaying chemistry on this level, and they're not even on screen until 5 episodes in. I mean, how do you accomplish that? And to give us a show that I think will resonate years and years to come during Christmas, right? Because, I go back, I watch movies like Elf and Home Alone, but now Sweet Magnolias, Dash and Lily is kind of one of those shows for me. I'm like, I might revisit this because it puts me in that Christmas spirit. So if you guys like shows like that, of that genre, but very well written with great chemistry, this is a huge recommendation for me. I love it.
And it was such a great show for being if you're kind of depressed in quarantine, you need something to lift you up. Dash and Lily's perfect show for that.
I agree. I agree with that completely. Yeah, it's one of the most positive, just like, we're going to have rough patches, but we can, I just loved it. I loved the way it progressed.
So then we had Bridgerton season 1, based on the Julia Quinn novels. Yes. And what was so great about this show, in my opinion, is that I felt like it was, for lack of a better word, kind of erotica done right for women, that really captured the way that kind of women enjoy, a lot of women at least enjoy kind of romance and romance novels. When you're reading a romance novel and you get super, super excited, and the way that it's just, even the way that things were shot, they talk about the female gaze, but I think I've never seen a better example of it than in this show. And the way it would just kind of linger on certain things. things, and you feel like, oh, it's so good. And it was a very dishy show. I really enjoyed it. I liked even sort of the slight hint of kind of escapism fantasy. And it's not a fantasy show, but it is completely not even trying to be realistic. And so that just kind of adds to the escapism, I think, of what you have in just the costumes and the styles and the fact that they have like blind racially blind casting, and all that adds to the escapism, I think, of it.
Well, and I had some that said, Austin, it's not historically accurate, but if you go back to the writer, I mean, it was said this is not a show. This is a fantastical fantasy show that I think did a wonderful job of sucking you into that world. And the telling tale of how this show resonates with people is, I'm a movie critic. I like to review movies and TV shows. My wife comes home and she says to me, Austin, I really want to watch this Bridgerton show. My friend Michelle at work recommended it to me. And I'm sitting here saying, I have recommended this to you 1,000 times because I had just watched it. I was like, watch Bridgerton. But it takes a conversation at work between all of her friends talking up this show. It motivated her. So this is not only like, it overtook Cobra Kai as the #1 show on Netflix. This is a show that is finding a huge audience. Women, yes, I loved it. Yeah. I loved the show. So I think this is a huge hit for Netflix, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. Now, Rachel, we've talked about this before. The future of Bridgerton is not what I expected. If you want to kind of go
if they're going by the books,
now.
We don't know. So the books, each book is a different member of the Bridgerton family story. I haven't read the books yet. This is what I've been told. And I've been told that the second book is about Anthony, and he was a bit of a snooze to me. So I'm a little nervous about that.
I'm with you.
Because I didn't really care about him and the opera singer. That didn't really interest me that much. So we'll see. But in fact, I could have had all 3 brothers just compacted into one brother.
Yeah, there were that whole, his family in general, I felt needed a bit more, right? But if you're saying they're going to explore that next season, maybe this is our opportunity, hopefully, to build that up. So we'll see.
Well, and I feel like we are going to get quite a bit of Penelope in the second season.
I hope so.
I mean, especially with our ending for her character.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see quite a bit of her, but she's not a Bridgerton.
Yeah.
So she's a Featherington. And I said in my review, I said, this isn't about realism or historical accuracy. It doesn't waste time explaining casting choices or the setting. It might as well be on another planet and timetable. Yes. It's about eroticism, lust, and luxury, which all has to be hid under the rules of the time period. That's very sexy and fun.
I couldn't agree more, because we've seen that lust and sexy, like a movie like 365 Days, which was just the worst thing. The second worst thing I saw last year. Yeah. But I've seen it done well. And I think this show is a great example of how you can do that. Give us compelling characters and give us a well-written show. And I thought it encompassed all of that.
Yeah. So taking a hard left, we also had some, I guess you might say, dystopian type shows. Ooh. One literally called Utopia. This was on Amazon Prime. And when I first responded to this, the screener invite, I thought it was a movie. I didn't realize it was a show. And so then I'm like, oh no, what did I sign up for?
You're there for forever then.
Oh man. This was not for me. It was so violent. Like it was gratuitously violent, I thought. And I didn't feel like it really had that much interesting to say. And it might have been that it was just too close to home, too close with what we're dealing with, that maybe that's why it didn't work very well for me. But I don't know. What did you think about Utopia?
I actually kind of liked this show. I liked the fact that I didn't see essentially anything coming, right? I love how it kind of left me on my toes at the end of every episode. And to say something now, I think the characters could have been a bit more compelling, one in particular, and a couple of subplots in there that I could have even done without maybe. But overall, I enjoyed it, but I think this one got canceled. right? I think this one got, they're
I,
not going
I
to pick
didn't
it up.
hear if it officially got canceled, but I would be surprised if we got a season
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, I think this is one that they either opted not to pick up or there were rumors that they're not picking it up. But there's actually a faithful fan base because this is a remake of I believe a show, not a movie. And they were not happy that it was remade. So I guess I need to go watch the original Utopia, is what everybody told me. So I'm definitely interested. But
Yeah.
the fans that watched it and didn't hold that remake, they enjoyed it. I just don't think it was enough to get it past that point to a season two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you got to see the new season of Dark. That was your, I believe, top choice of all that you
Yes.
saw on Netflix. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's my number one. And I kind of feel that way about every season. This was the third and final season of a wild sci-fi time travel show. It's a German show, so I recommend going the subtitle route. And by doing that, you have to pay a lot of attention. But you also have to pay attention to the show because we're dealing with various versions of different characters in different time periods, time travel, and this wild sci-fi story that honestly I've never seen anything like before. Dark is so different and fresh, and it has this look and tone to it that just makes you feel, uh, almost like you're there with them. So I love how it engrossed you and sucked you in, and I just thought season 3 capped everything off so well and gave each and every character a, a, a sense of finality. And I can't really say that about a lot of shows. Most shows either end on a note or they go downhill. Dark actually gave me, I think, its best season yet with season 3. So
Mm,
I would recommend this beyond anything if you have the time, if you have the patience. And Rachel, another thing is I have actually heard, because this all deals with so much time travel, you can watch the episodes of season 1 in different orders,
hmm.
which is wild. So I've not done that
Yeah.
yet, but that's what I've heard.
Well, I definitely have to watch that show. That sounds really good. I mean, speaking of shows in other languages, one of the fun things that I got to do this year is watch my first K drama. The Romance is
Mm,
a Bonus Book. And this was with my friend Sui from K-Pop Converters, her YouTube
nice.
channel. And we did a special episode on the Hallmarks podcast for September when it's kind of a lighter month. And so we talked about K dramas and this show, Romance is a Bonus Book. And it was really fun. And it was just fun to get to experience another culture and their
Yeah.
type of storytelling. It was a big ask, I guess, to watch. It was a big task because the episodes are very long. They're like 65 minutes each one, and they you can't do anything else. You have to be fully focused, which is probably for
Yeah.
the best. But normally I'm kind of multitasking a little bit, but you can't because it's all in Korean. You got to read
Yep.
the subtitles, and so that was an interesting experience. But I'm excited to even dive in further. I've heard a lot of good things about Crash Landing on You, some of these other shows. So it's just cool that we have access to a whole different world of content.
Oh, it is. And it gave me, I've had some people tell me, Austin, why don't you focus in more on, and not expand, do all these different genres. But I'll tell you what, some of these shows are some of the best shows that I've ever watched. A show
Yeah.
like Kingdom, which ended up being a Korean zombie show, my second favorite Netflix show of last year. And then you have these big surprises like Alice in Borderland.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a wild, you mentioned K-pop, this is a Korean show as well, but a wild, uh, we'll say, Hunger Games meets escape room style show where you dive into this brand new world and everyone's competing and going through these mazes. It was just fascinating. So the fact that we get these things from Netflix, and Dark, it's a German show. So we don't 10 years ago, I couldn't have imagined such a wide range of content. And now
Yeah.
we have that and we have access to that. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And it continues to give me some of my favorite things. And I love
Yeah.
it.
I think so too. I think so too. Well, we also had some pretty good entries from the world of Star Wars over Disney Plus. We had
Yes.
Clone Wars season 7, which was exciting, especially the very end
Right.
of it.
Yes.
And then we had the Mandalorian season 2, and I overall enjoyed the season of The Mandalorian. I thought it was
Hmm.
good. I thought they had some strange character design. I did not like that frog lady. I thought that was very weird. And and then there was that one guy who kind of looked like a fish. I was like, what is that? This is so
Oh
weird.
yeah.
Because Star Wars, to me, the aliens are always off planet. They're not mutated versions of our own creatures, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
see elephant people and stuff like that. So what I thought it was very odd. And so those kind of middle episodes weren't that great, but I totally dug the ending. Did you like the ending? Not to spoil it, but did you think it was fun?
I oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Right.
And I feel like I'm blinded. I won't say why. I feel like I'm blinded by nostalgia when I talk about that ending, but a part of me says it's okay to be happy with that level of what people call fan service, because fan service doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, right? There
Right.
can be good fan service like Avengers Endgame, and there can be bad fan service like, in my opinion, Rise of Skywalker. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a fine line that you have to walk, and I just thought that ending, that finale, did such a good job, and bringing in various characters from across the universe throughout the season. I geeked out during The Mandalorian during that season. I loved it as a whole.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was like that in I thought the Lego Star Wars special,
Oh,
holiday
I really
special, were
enjoyed that.
like the
Yeah,
most sort of joyous that we've been able to
I
have
I
for
agree.
Star
Yeah,
Wars.
yeah.
Yeah. That it's been fun. And so we've also had some reality shows that have been fun on streaming. We had The Circle. I don't know if you ever got to watch any of that on Netflix, but pretty fun show. And it was kind of there was a certain degree of almost escapism with it.
Yeah.
With all of us end up going into quarantine, and it's a show kind of about forced quarantine. Is kind of a more creative take on Big Brother.
Mhm.
And so that was a fun show. And then also I got into the Great British Baking Show this season. I
I
finally dive in. It's only
loves that
taken me
show.
9 seasons.
Yeah. And it looks, is it as good as people say? Because I have heard it is a phenomenal show on Netflix.
It's so good. And the thing
Okay.
I think that makes it really good is that they allow them to take their time. That I mean, there is a time limit, but they give them way more time, which
Yeah.
than the most of these Food Network shows. And whereas like on Chopped, they have 20 minutes to make an appetizer. And I think it makes more sense to give more time, because then you're getting
I
more
agree.
interesting stuff. And so I like that. And I learned that a biscuit is a cookie in England. I didn't know that.
Makes me really hungry. That's
Yeah.
part of the problem why I can't, because we watched Hell's Kitchen this year, and it was my first time ever. I just get so hungry, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I
Me
can't
too.
cook that well. But
Yeah.
I'm still mesmerized by the fact that they're able to do that. Another show, Rachel, that I watched. Did you watch Too Hot to Handle?
No, but I heard about it. But
Oh
yeah, it's
boy.
bad I have the Crumble app on my phone. I haven't watched Everybody's Bake Off. Like, I could order cookies right now and they'd be hot
Oh,
and sent right to
crumble.
my
Oh,
door.
I need to get that. I've heard good things. Yeah. Oh man. Now, see, now I'm getting hungry. I'm sitting over here hungry now.
But yeah, I loved that. That was a lot of fun. And then also Survivor 40, Winners at War. This was
Mm,
on CBS. They
okay.
do have Survivor on Netflix, but not, I don't think this season yet. But it was so good. All winners, 40 seasons. Well,
Dang.
not all 40, but they had all winners. It was so good. Tony
That's
blew my
crazy.
mind, and as well as many of the other contestants, and it was just really fun.
Yeah.
So that was good. And one of the cool things is that a lot of these shows are involving podcasting more and more. And of course, that's my first love. That's my
Mm,
favorite. And like McMillions for every single episode of the show, there is a podcast with the creators doing further interviews and talking about behind the scenes and stuff. It's really great podcast. And then they also had with Survivor 40, they have Rob has a podcast, which it was how I even first started into podcasting. And Rob Sesternino, such a great host. And they cover all the Survivor know-it-alls, were covered every episode. And so when you can get the kind of that added second sort of pleasure out of the show, not only from watching, but then, and almost all these shows have a podcast associated with, there's already like 3 Bridgerton podcasts, and there's, all this kind of stuff. It's really good. And so there were some really good animated shows on the streamers this season. I think that my favorites were the Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max. Was brilliant. I thought they were incredibly well done. And I was nervous because the previous show was called the Looney Tunes Show, and it was garbage. I hated it. And the idea was it was supposed to be like Seinfeld, but with the Looney Tunes, and it was really bad. I did not like it at all. And then this was so good. I just felt like it was a return to form in the music, especially anything to do with like sound editing was so like classic. I loved it. And just, I don't know, I just loved almost every single one of them. I thought was just brilliant with the animation, with the style, with the feel, was so good. And that was my favorite thing on HBO Max all season.
Yeah, that was one that I didn't even have a chance to review. I don't even think I saw all of the episodes, but I saw most of them. And oh my goodness.
So good, what right?
A blast. Just as a fan of the original Looney Tunes growing up, and to reinvent it for a new generation, but not change it drastically like they have with some of the others, I just thought was great. So yeah, what a fun show on HBO Max.
Yeah. And some people complain about them substituting Elmer Fudd's gun, but it worked for the storyline. It was fine. Like those kinds of, it was ridiculous.
I think they actually, you said the storyline, I think they actually kind of almost explained that in a way, which I was like, all right, okay, let's go. So that it was really good, and I can't wait to see more.
My favorite one is there's an episode where Daffy steps in a bit of gum on the ground. Did you see that one?
Oh yeah.
And the gum gets bigger and expands, and that was like classic.
It's classic Looney Tunes.
It was so good. And then the other one that I loved is, of course, Hilda, season 2.
I gotta see it, Rachel.
It's so good. I've been trying to get Austin to see it for a long time. Yeah. And Hilda is a series it's based on graphic novels, a line of graphic novels like Luke Pearson. And it's about a little girl that her mother is moving her from the country to the city of Trollberg. And she doesn't really want to move because she loves exploring in the country. And this is a world where there's all kinds of fantastical creatures. There's trolls, there's giants, there's twigmen, there's elves, there's all these different creatures. And when she's in season 2, when she moves into Trollberg, there's a safety patrol officer named Officer Allberg. And at first she thinks that he's going to be doing a good thing, that he's going to be protecting the trolls, protecting the people. And he claims that. And yet you start to realize real quick, and Hilda starts to realize that he's no good and that he's all out for anything that'll make himself look good. And so that was an interesting dynamic. Then she has 2 friends named Frida and David, who are so cute and really fun. And then also her relationship with her mom is really well done, because her mom wants her daughter to go and experience all these things, but then she also is like, no, don't hurt my daughter. Like, I want her to be safe. And she's out, with trolls and stuff like that. And so it's such a good show. The animation is absolutely beautiful. The music is great. And I absolutely just love it. I think she is so cute and so positive. So if you're in a bad mood, watch Hilda.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me so much of my 2 favorite animated shows on Netflix this year were BoJack Horseman, the final season, which was one of the best final seasons of any show I've seen in a long time. But that's more of an adult show. One for a younger demographic show that I loved was Kippo and the Age of Wonder Beasts. We got all 3 seasons this year, or last year, 2020. And it's a DreamWorks show. It's about a young girl who gets separated from her people, goes above ground where everything's mutated, and you have all these different creatures, and has to reunite with her family. And along the way, she goes on adventures. And I thought the animation was beautiful. And the show focuses on music. And in every episode, there's a different song, whether they're singing or playing these crazy instruments. And I'll tell you what, it packs that DreamWorks punch, almost like a How to Train Your Dragon. It's just this grand adventure with beautiful characters, beautiful relationships. It's very progressive for a kid's show. I really loved the way that it turned out. And Rachel, I'm definitely going to get on Hilda, but this kind of feels like the kind of show that you would really gravitate towards. So I'd say this is a huge recommendation from me.
Yeah, I definitely am going to watch this because I didn't even heard of it until you told me about it, because I thought they only did like the spin-off shows of DreamWorks, and those
Boss
are
Baby,
not for
all
me.
that stuff. Yeah.
I'm not into the home show or whatever that looked terrible, or Boss Baby.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Same here.
But that sounds great. And yeah, so let's see if there's anything else. One other show that is just so good that's worth hunting down is called The Chosen. If you're Christian, if you like high quality content and you're Christian, The Chosen is a great show. It's about the life of Jesus, but it's so authentic, and it feels like this is a real person that we're watching, playing with kids and joking around, and it's not sacrilegious by any means, but just like they flesh him out to be a real person. And I think they did such a good job, especially in a genre that I feel like is so starved for quality, that you don't typically get very, very good quality in the faith-based realm. And so to have this show that's so well made, so well acted, and you can download the Chosen app and then watch it on there. And what they do is they basically like ask for a contribution. If you think it's good and you like it, then they ask you to donate, which I was more than happy to once I finished, because I thought it was really well done. But that's totally optional. You can still watch it if you want. And so yeah, and I saw that my local theater, they're doing a theatrical version they have a theatrical cut of The Chosen season 1, because they're going to be doing a season 2. It's filming right now. And so it's a very well done show about Jesus. And the first season is kind of starting up into his ministry, like the first miracles, the gathering of his apostles, those kinds of things. So if that's your boat, and that's something I think a lot of our listeners would be interested in, you should definitely check it out. My friend Durbin over at Debania, he loved it. He told me about it, and I loved it. And so spreading the word.
I like Durbin quite a bit. I had a comment earlier in the year when I reviewed a show called Messiah. Someone said, go check out The Chosen. I think it had a very high score on IMDb. So I am very interested now that you bring that back up, and I completely forgot about it. So that's kind of my jam. Again, we're trying to find some content that's maybe, good acting, all that stuff. Let's hope. But I've heard good things, Rachel. So I'm glad you brought that back into the consciousness.
Yeah, because a lot of times these shows and these movies get kind of lost in the ministry, which has value, but the message needs to come. The story needs to come before the ministry, and so that's kind of what sometimes they get wrong. But I really enjoyed it. And so I think we basically covered most everything. There were a few other shows. There was Emily in Paris, which was just kind of and it was fine. And then also another show I did not like at all was Sanditon. It was handsomely mounted. This was on PBS. Handsomely mounted, but I did not like the choices at all. And it's so frustrating because they have Jane Austen's unfinished novel, right? So they can do whatever they want with the ending. And I was just like, that's what you decided to do? What? Wow. And it screamed of a show just trying to be super, super modern. and edgy. And so I did not like Sanditon at all.
Interesting.
I do not recommend it. And so I was extra excited to get Bridgerton because I felt like, I even said in my review that I said that my review, where's it that I said? That I said earlier this year, we had the supposed modern take on Jane Austen's unfinished novel Sanditon, which was a huge misfire. The attempts to combine camp and gritty realism did not work, especially the terrible ending. With Bridgerton, it's like they took notes and corrected everything I disliked in the earlier show.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
Dang, I didn't even know that came out. So yeah, I will not be watching it now.
Sanditon apologized for being a Regency story. Bridgerton revels in it.
Wow. Dang. Yeah. Okay. So I will not be watching that show, Rachel. That's for sure.
Yeah. So we covered a lot of stuff. My favorite show is Hilda season 2. Yours is Dark season 3, right?
Yes.
So a lot of variety, a lot of stuff to watch. As I always say on my Hidden Gems podcast, I say there's no excuse to be bored. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Listen, there's and some other shows. Just some quick shout outs to some shows. I think The Queen's Gambit is absolutely worth a watch. Takes place in a fictional version of the city I live in, Lexington, Kentucky. Ozark gets better and better and better. Season 1, I was like, season 3 is phenomenal. The Boys, I thought the new season of The Boys was super fun. The Last Dance, I'm a huge Michael Jordan guy.
That was good.
Which the mentality of that man. And then a show that I actually caught up on this year, technically on Netflix, but really AMC, Better Call Saul. If you're a Breaking Bad fan, oh my goodness. Better Call Saul is phenomenal. Bob Odenkirk is a revelation in this show. And I don't like it as much as Breaking Bad, but on a quality level, it is neck and neck. So a great show before technically Breaking Bad that I think you guys would like.
That's great. Well, this was really fun to get to talk to you about these streaming services and these streaming shows. And so thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's always a delight to have you on. And where can people find you and your YouTube channel?
Absolutely, Rachel. Thanks for having me. You guys can find me on YouTube, Austin Burke, as well as on Letterboxd, logging movies, and at the Burkinator on Twitter and Instagram. I love what I do, but I love talking about all these various great things. And my favorite time of the year, most busy time of the year, is always December and that January space where we get to recap, review, talk about all the best things and sometimes the worst, but the best things from that previous year. And I loved what 2020 brought us in terms of TV shows. Yeah,
it really was kind of the saving grace of 2020.
Yeah, it was.
Really was. So let us know what your favorites were in the comment section or on Twitter. We'd love to talk about it. And maybe if there's things you didn't like, you want to talk about, just put it in the comment section. And that would be great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. And you can also find us at the Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store, which has tons of fun Hallmark inspired and romance inspired merch. So check that out. And thanks again, Austin, and we'll see y'all later. Bye, everyone.